Hello people, this is Sonali, the Melodramatic Bookworm. If you've been here before, welcome back, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to the Melodramatic Bookworm family. Also, welcome to the reading vlog for the April 2024 subscriber pick, which is On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous by Vuong. For those of you who don't know, subscriber picks are reading vlogs in which every month you choose from among 4 or 5 options a book for me to read, vlog and share my thoughts about with you. And the subscriber pick that you chose for the month of April 2024 was On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous. I have heard amazing things about this book, a topmost of which list is that it is poetic and lyrical. But I've also seen people speak unfavorably of the prose, which they say is too purple to be effective. But we are here to find out which of these groups of people I am about to join. Will I find this book to be poetic and lyrical, or will I find this prose to be too purple for my liking? So before we start this vlog, a quick look at the Goodreads blurb. On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous is a letter from a son to a mother who cannot read. Written when the speaker, Little Dog, is in his late 20s, the letter unearths a family's history that began before he was born. A history whose epicenter is rooted in Vietnam and serves as a doorway into parts of his life his mother has never known. All of it leading to an unforgettable revelation. At once a witness to the fraught yet undeniable love between a single mother and her son, it is also a brutally honest exploration of race, class and masculinity, asking questions central to our American moment, immersed as we are in addiction, violence and trauma, but undergirded by compassion and tenderness. On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous is as much about the power of telling one's own story as it is about the obliterating silence of not being heard. With stunning urgency and grace, Vuong writes of people caught between disparate worlds and asks how we heal and rescue one another without forsaking who we are. The question of how to survive and how to make of it a kind of joy powers the most important debut novel of many years. Okay, I feel like this blurb is also so incredibly purple and crowded with repetitive detail, but no, we are not going to do that thing where we judge a book without reading it. We are here, we are doing this vlog because we want to know what the book is about. We want to form our own opinions about it. So what are we going to do? Pull ourselves back, hold our opinions off till we finish reading the book. So without any further ado, let's dive right into this reading vlog and let's read the subscriber pick that you have chosen for me for April 2024, which is On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous by Vuong. Hi there. So I'm about 20% into this book and I've done so many back and forths. I don't even know what to think about this book anymore. But you remember when I was talking about the purple prose? Oh, it's there. And how? The blurb says that this is a letter to a mother from her son, but this feels more like a series of disjointed letters within which are contained disjointed paragraphs, within which are contained disjointed sentences, much like those nested Matryoshka dolls. Yeah, like that. It's also more of a stream of consciousness kind of writing that is being poured into these letters, with the author jumping from one place to the next in a way that is absolutely delightfully poetic one moment and mind-numbingly, mind-scratchingly annoying the next. Let me give you an example of both. First is a poetic one. Let's start with the good. I came to know in those afternoons that madness can sometimes lead to discovery, that the mind, fractured and short-wired, is not entirely wrong. The room filled and refilled with our voices as the snow fell from our head, the hardwood around my knees whitening as the past unfolded around us. And from this to this next one, which I feel is so disconnected from one sentence to the next. I mean, around her feet, a circle of wet heat. The brain of the macaque monkey is the closest of any mammal to a human's. I mean, how do you go from talking about a woman peeing to the brain of a macaque monkey, even if that monkey is in the story at that point? How do you correlate the two? But then there are yet others which, when you read them for the first time, will irritate the crap out of you. But when you read them for the second time, like I did because I had to film this update, you will start making sense of what is being said in the strangest way possible. I also don't like that it seems very obvious that the author is trying too hard to turn this into a novel in verse. I understand that this is one such, but in that endeavor he ends up bringing in disconnected, there's that word again, but disjointed metaphors. And he does this in a bit to connect two brilliant but disparate dots. Here's one example. So he narrates how often the smallest or weakest of the flock is named after the most despicable things, because evil spirits roaming the land for healthy, beautiful children would hear the name of something hideous and ghastly being called in for supper and pass over the house, sparing the child. And he follows this up with, to love something then is to name it after something so worthless it might be left untouched and alive. Maybe it's a culture difference or something, but it was just something that scratched at my mind. This is not something that I would relate to or that I personally like, because it is a whole culture which I know nothing about apparently. So it's a personal complaint, not something that I find fault with. And at this point I can't really decide if I like the writing or not, because it's so vague. I feel like a pendulum going from this end of the like radar to that end of it, like liking the book at one point and wanting to break my head over it at another. So I'll hold off on the decision on whether or not I like this book for now, and I will go and read some more so that I can arrive at that decision. I'll see you on the other side. Hi again. I'm now 40% into On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous, and I swear I'm so confused by this book right now. I can't even. The ping-ponging has become so much worse, but then again, maybe the swinging is leaning more towards the favorable end of the radar. So maybe that's something, I guess. But I can't really tell at this point. The author continues to take us through the life experiences of the main character, Little Dog's grandmother and mother, and Little Dog himself. There's a PTSD from the Vietnam War and how it manifests itself, them moving to America, the things his mother went through, the job she did for a living, the family's history, the bits and pieces of racist America, the history of this racism and its remnants in the present. The reference to Tiger Woods and his mixed heritage fits in with the story with the kind of comparison it offers, but it was a little because I'm not a fan of the man. I just grudgingly accepted them as part of the story. Either way, I still found myself softening towards this book, and I might not be a full big fan at this point, and I wouldn't even be able to say that I like the book, but I do see the appeal. Let me give you a couple of examples as to what I liked, the parts that I liked. But my doubt is everywhere, ma. Even when I know something to be as true as bone, I fear the knowledge will dissolve, will not, despite my writing it, stay real. That is so real, because that happens to me as well. I feel like I know some things, but then those things kind of disappear, and it makes me wonder whether the knowledge that I do have is real or not. This is me. And then there is this quote. Outside, the hummingbird is whirring sounds almost like human breath. Its beak jabs into the pool of sugared water at the feeder's base. What a terrible life, I think now, to have to move so fast just to stay in one place. I don't have to say anything about that, I think. So those are the only thoughts that I have about this book at the moment, although I must say that my interest in the book and where Ocean Vuong is actually going to take it is definitely peaked. And yet, I'm going to proceed with caution, because we all know what happens when I run forward and when I move forward in a book like an excited battering ram. Okay? Okay. Okay. Oh, where was that book again? Hi there. I just finished part 2. I'm about 67% into this book, and at this point I stand firmly behind what I said in my previous update. This book feels like such a confused mishmash of so many different things and so many different writing styles that I feel like I'm in limbo. I'm constantly in limbo because I don't know what to think about this book. And I cannot understand what I should be feeling towards it. At some points, I'm scrunching my face and I'm like, this because I'm finding the writing so pretentious, and in other place I'm nodding vigorously because either I'm relating to what the author is saying or because I'm finding the writing to be beautiful. Like there's no in between. But at no point does either of these facets of the author's writing surprise me, because I've gotten a read on the author's writing style and I know that both of them, either of them, could come barreling at me out of nowhere. They can hit me out of nowhere, and they force me to take a step back and acknowledge them. They are clamoring for it. But like I mentioned before, there are some things that I admire, some that I don't, and some that you have to squint really hard to find the meaning of, like this quote here. The thing about beauty is that it's only beautiful outside of itself. Okay. And then the things that are on the beautiful end of the spectrum, like this one, which is so poignantly sad. I got what I wanted. A boy swimming toward me. Except I was no shore, ma. I was driftwood, trying to remember what I had broken from to get here. It just splintered something in me. Like that very driftwood that he's talking about. And then there are quotes like these, which I'll tell you here. 3 periods to a boy sentence. His hard, lean arms aimed in the rain. The children, the wheel, they stand very still because tenderness depends on how little the world touches you. To stay tender, the weight of your life cannot lean on your bones. This is incredibly rude, okay? And I'm saying that as an arthritic person. Why you talk about bones, bro? Okay, I'm joking, but overall that thing, it just like... What are you talking about? What are you on about? Let me put this here so that... It's a strange mix, this book, because it tries to be so much all at once. I mean, there's the poetry, obviously, then there's the historical fiction in the way the main character is telling the stories of his grandmother and mother, and also of his first relationship. And then there's contemporary, and the way the author veers off into tangents, and each of these tangents seemingly not having anything to do with the next. Like there's absolutely no connection between one sentence and the next in some places. It sort of gives it a stream of consciousness feeling, which I don't know if I really like in this book. But to be fair, it never claimed to be anything else. This isn't one of those books that says something on the cover and then turns out to be completely different. Trust me, I know bunches of such books, and this one, it told us exactly what to expect. And yet, I crib and whinge as I read it, because even if we are getting exactly what we were told we were going to be getting, the lack of structure and clarity and the whiplash of the U-turns on every page, it still stings and annoys me to no end. But let's see if the last 32% redeems this book for me, although I'm also thinking that any hope of redemption for this book at this point is kind of futile. But I'm still keeping my fingers crossed though. So I'll see you once I finish this book. Until then, bye. Hey, hi, hello. I finished reading On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous late in the night, and I must say I was so pissed. I have so many thoughts about this book, which I'm going to talk to you about in this last update. So it was 2:30 in the AM when I finished reading this book, and the only thought that was going through my mind when I finished it, like it was going on in a loop, is that I firmly stand behind all of the opinions that I have expressed so far in this vlog about this book, even though I hoped with all my heart that the writing would ease up. But what it did was it just progressively wound even tighter than before. And I'm here trying to pry open this writing and look into its depths to understand it better, but nope. I feel like a pendulum, like swinging back and forth between two ends, one of which is a beautiful, very poetic wordscape, and the other of which is an annoying, closed off word dump. And the most irritating thing, the most annoying thing is that both of these are present in equal measure in the book, and both of them have a hefty influence on my final opinion of the book. Okay, that aside, let me take you through a few of my reactions that I had while I was reading this book, which I noted down in here. Let's go. So the first of which is this one, which I feel like, okay, let me first tell you the quote and then I'll explain myself to you. It's in these moments next to you that I envy words for doing what we can never do. How they can tell all of themselves simply by standing still, simply by being. Imagine I could lie down beside you and my whole body, every cell, radiates a clear singular meaning. Not so much a writer as a word pressed down beside you. But without someone to say, listen, read or write a word, don't you think a word also holds no meaning? I mean, I know what you're trying to do. I know that you are trying to ascribe a more profound meaning to a word, but does it have to be that way? Because either way, language serves people. I mean, it will exist way after we leave this world, and that's for sure. But to insert this meaning into a place where it's not needed, just scratch me the wrong way. The truth is, we don't have to die if we don't feel like it. I mean, this feels very tone deaf at this point, because do you think that people die only because they feel like it? Half the people die even if they don't feel like it, because they don't have a say in it. As if most of the people in the world want to die. We don't have to die. Like, it's not in our hands. All of us will die at some point. I mean, I get what you're trying to say. It's the context and all, but the beauty of poetic writing is that even if you take it out of the context, it should be applicable. And this, but it's a mess, ma. I'm not making this up. I made it down. And my first reaction was, it's like these sayings, these cliches are turned inside out like socks coming right out of a dryer or something. And then you use them as new proverbs, new cliches. Like, voila. Tell me what this means, okay? I cannot for the life of me understand what this author is saying. But I remember the table anyway. It exists and it does not exist. An inheritance assembled with bare mouths and nouns and ash. I remember the table as a shard embedded in the brain. How some will call it shrapnel and some will call it art. Okay, moving on. Only something in pain could make a sound you could enter. Then his eyelashes, you could hear them think. I mean, I have way too many problems with this book, but almost all of those problems, those issues are with the writing style. And I have spoken about a lot of these issues previously, so I'll just stick to the ones from this section here. Okay, so when I started reading this last part, I realized very quickly that that the author uses the word warp when it's raining outside and when he's trying to describe the site or scene over there. And it gets old real quick, and it isn't as poetic as it is intended to be. The true time warp actually comes when the author himself jumps from fighting back tears in one sentence to considering the stars and wondering how anyone could call the night dark in the very next sentence. I mean, it feels like a figurative whip lashing across your face, and it feels very real. And then the author writing like he has introduced every character to us, and as if we are supposed to be very well versed with their behavior, is a problem that I have had since Margaret Atwood. Presumption isn't a great look when you are writing a story, when you're telling the reader a story. There are some things that the author leaves till about 75% into the story that make it feel like it's a last-ditch attempt to keep the reader invested, and it just ends up feeling like a cheap or a lazy trick just to make the story end heavy. I don't know if I've mentioned the macaque, but every time I think of this book, I think of that scene, and it is so goddamn gory. It just makes me sick every time. I'm like, was it really necessary though? In the end, there was one thought that stuck with me, which is that it is good to subvert opinions, to subvert expectations, realities. It's good to subvert structures, and that is true if you respect the reader enough to take them along with you on the journey. But this text works itself like a jigsaw puzzle, uncoupling when it wishes, joining in when it wishes, keeping the reader in the dark about a lot of things, including the meaning of what the author is trying to say. This meaning is hidden under layers and layers and layers of the purplest of proses. And this is one that trumps even this is how you lose a time war. Okay, maybe that is taking it a little too far, because that is but this one feels very self-important, and I don't mean that in a good way. There's an underlying feeling of I'm better because I use big and complicated words twisted into complicated or reverse metaphors that got under my skin too much for my life. Even a little less and I probably would have liked this book, but at this point I'm like, bro. And my comment towards the end, which is right here in this book, was literally, please, enough, stop, I beg of you. So you see what I thought about this book. I don't think I need to condense all my thoughts into a mini review and make a separate section out of it. I just didn't like this book, and I did think that it was pretentious, but I also do grudgingly acknowledge the beauty of some of its parts, because that needs to be said. Only those few parts weren't enough to salvage this book from the depths of my unfavorable opinion. I know it's not fair that the word favorable is trapped inside unfavorable. So that was my reading vlog for the April 2024 subscriber pick, which was On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. What did you think of this vlog? Have you read this book? If you have, what did you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please like it and share it to spread the word. And if you like my content and would like to see more from me, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon beside the subscribe button to get notified as and when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and add melodrama to your life.